As you prepare for your national exam, I wanted to give you a few resources. The first one was the Excel file that I gave you with all the concepts in the grammar section. What I'm going to do now is do a think aloud where I model my thinking when I do paragraph coherence questions. So paragraph coherence questions, let me make it so I can edit. Smaller over here, red is a better color. So you'll see paragraph coherence questions are basically, they're very similar to the word order questions where you flip or switch the order of the words to make a grammatical sentence, except this time you're switching the order of sentences to make a very logical paragraph. So there's a few tips that I have for you in terms of the skill that you can generalize to any paragraph coherence question that you see. So when you see paragraph coherence, right, and you see these kinds of questions, you don't even need to look at or read the instruction, right? You don't need to waste your time. You're already familiar with what the test format would look like. So let's go ahead and get into question 1. The first step that I want you to take, right, before reading the answer choices, before doing anything else, is read the sentences. Don't try to order them just yet. Just read them in the order that they are given to you to get a sense or an idea of what it's talking about. Some eye signals are unconscious, okay? Maybe talking about eye signals. We receive 80% of our information about the world through them, right? There should be through over here. Add a little R. Through them, right? So again, as I'm reading, one thing that I'm looking for are reference words. So this word over here, them, must refer to something, right? And this definitely cannot come at the beginning of our paragraph. So if I go down and see, right, there's no B in the beginning, so I think we're good. But these are the kinds of things that will really show you which sentence should come before another one. Okay, so let's look at the next one. When we look at something nice, our pupils get bigger. Okay, that could be a sentence on its own. Our eyes are the most important of our 5 senses, and we also send signals to other people with our eyes. Okay, over here, the keyword that signals to me that this can't come in the beginning, right? This has to come after something else, is this also. Okay. So you can attempt to order all of them by yourself, although that would A, take you a long time, and B, you might not get the same kind of order that test makers are looking for. So what I want to do is look at the keywords, right, the referent words that I have highlighted, and look at what they could be referring to. So we receive 80% of our information about the world through them, right? Them could be referring to what? To pupils. Eye signals? Not really. We also said in signals this can't be a first sentence. So the most likely thing that them is referring to is our eyes. Our eyes are the most important of our 5 senses. If you think about it, right? Our eyes are the most important, and then it is expanding on why they're important. They're important because we receive 80%. That's a large amount of our information about the world that we receive through them. What is them? Our eyes. Okay? So because, right, I found this link, right, to save yourself time, don't even look through the rest of them. If there are 2 things that you're sure should come in a certain order, right? So I believe D and then B. It should be D and then B. So I'll look at the answer choices. So D and B are split by C over here, right? When we look at something nice, our pupils get bigger. We receive 80% of our information through them. Not really, right? D and B, actually B becomes before D over here. so I don't choose this one. This is the only answer choice that has D and B consecutively, right? Where I have my introduction over here. Our eyes are the most important of our five senses, right? It is the topic sentence. We know that we're going to be talking about our eyes, and that we receive 80% of our information about the world through them. This is a simple process of elimination that you can use to save yourself time in paragraph coherence questions. Okay, so once you do that, I want you to read right through the rest of the letters given over here so that you can make sure that the rest of this makes sense, right? Sometimes it can be tricky. You think that you've made a connection, and then when you read the rest of them, it doesn't really make sense. So I'm gonna read the rest of them to check. So our eyes are the most important of our five senses. We receive 80% of our information about the world through them, our eyes, right? We also send signals to other people with our eyes. This makes sense, right? We receive information, and then it's telling us another use that our eyes have. We also send signals. Some eye signals are unconscious, right? We're talking about signals, and then generally, and then saying some eye signals, right? After signals has been introduced. And then lastly, when we look at something nice, our pupils get bigger. This is an example of an unconscious eye signal. So C is the choice that makes sense. Right? Again, I want you to focus on the skills that I am working through. Okay, let's look at another question. If it allows me, I think I have to go out of the drawing. Okay, I don't mind losing my changes. All right. So again, same order of things, right? I'm just going to set up my drawing tool so that you guys can follow along with me. Save my settings, so very good. I'm going to read the sentences as they are, okay? And again, as I read, I'm going to notice if there are any reference where I say this definitely cannot begin the paragraph because it is referring to something else. So with this one, it lives in man, the other stages of its life. This sentence absolutely cannot be at the beginning of the paragraph, right? And none of the answer choices do. It would be too obvious if this were the beginning. So the words that tell me that this shouldn't be the beginning, that there should be sentences before it, we have... Do I not have the drawing tool? Here we go. It, right? It has to refer to something else that has been introduced. You never begin a paragraph with a pronoun without introducing a noun first. Okay, over here in a similar matter, its life, right? These two are connected, it and its life. What is happening with the drawing tool? Let me just see. Okay, it and its life. I can connect them over here. The other word that tells me that this shouldn't be the beginning, or this should have something before it, the other stage, it says over here, right? The other stage. There must be some stage that has been mentioned before this, okay? Again, you would do this much quicker, right, in your head, and it would go a lot quicker for you. However, I'm doing this slowly so I can explain each step of my thinking and break it down for you. Okay, so the next sentence, bilharzias is a disease found all over the world. Good sentence. This might be an introductory sentence because it is introducing a disease. We'll come back to it. 3 species of schistosoma cause human disease. Okay, I have no idea where the sentence fits by just reading the sentence. It is spread by a small fluke of flatworm called schistosoma. Okay, again, I have this referent, right? This pronoun it, right? This sentence again cannot come in the beginning. It has to come after, right? Something that it refers to. It is spread by a small fluke or flatworm called schistosoma, right? I also know that this is a sentence that should introduce this concept, schistosoma, because it is just introducing, right, a flatworm called schistosoma, and then the other two sentences you'll see E in a second about schistosoma have to follow D. So schistosoma lives as a parasite in the water during one stage of its life. So I remember reading something about stage, right? Over here, the other stage. So during one stage of its life, right, should come right before that sentence. So A and E are linked. I also know, right, it is spread. What could be spread, right, by a flatworm, right? A disease. Where is the disease introduced? In B. So I also know that B and D are connected, okay? So again, what I'm telling you, you don't need to figure out where every sentence fits, right, in order to eliminate answers. It cannot begin, right, with A. It cannot begin with D because they both have reference. I think that B is the best option to begin this paragraph because it introduces the disease, okay? So this would be the answer choice that I choose. However, let me check, right, that it follows all of the links that I have made. So I made a link between B and D. So B and then D, right, is a disease, right? The disease, it is spread. Do we have B and D? Good. B then D. The other link that I made was E and E. Which one should come first? E and A, I'm sorry. Schistosoma lives as a parasite during one stage of its life, E, right? And then A, it lives in man the other stage. Okay, so one stage and then the other stage. And then C is the odd man out, right? Three species of schistosoma cause human disease, right? Once it introduces or tells us that it lives the other stage in man, it can talk about it being a human disease. So C is the last choice. Okay, again, notice how I am noticing reference words, right? Linking sentences together, what order they should come in, and I just eliminate answers or look for answers that are based on that. I'm not going through each answer choice saying, oh, would it make sense if I read it C-A-B-D-E? Would it make sense if I read it C-E-B? No, just based on what is given here, right? Which sentences should come, right? These two sentences should come right after each other, so they should be together, right? Which order should they be in? And then I look through the rest of the answer choices that I chose to make sure, just in case. Okay, I hope it's been clear so far. We will move on to the next question. We're going to do 5 questions. So that's the equivalent of a paragraph coherence section in your national exam. Okay, this next question, we're going to start in the same way, right? We're going to read the sentences as we read. We're going to try and notice if there are any reference, okay? In REM sleep, the body is quiet, but the mind is active, okay? Nothing per se that is a referent, but it says, right, I see REM sleep a few times here. I would prefer it if the paragraph introduced what REM sleep was, right, first. So go underline this a little bit. Let me get my drawing tool out. Okay, the right size, the right color, red, right? So REM sleep, okay, I'll keep track of this. These movements can be observed beneath closed eyes, okay? A referent here, these movements. So the sentence A, the one thing that I'm noticing is this sentence cannot begin the paragraph, right? These movements, what movements? There have to be movements that are mentioned. And then I'm also looking for another sentence that will mention movements, right? That will link to this sentence and what order they should be in. This is one of the things that I use to eliminate my answer choices, okay? So that's something I will look out for. Others believe that it helps to rid the brain of overstimulation. So this reference word here that I'm looking at is others. Others believe, right? So if others believe, that means that a belief of some kind has to be introduced before this, right? Some people believe this, others believe this, right? And then, sure enough, there is something over here, right? We would say some think that REM sleep helps to form permanent memories, right? And then others believe, right? So these two are linked together. Okay, let me read my last sentence. During sleep, we experience periods of rapid eye movement, or REM. This seems like a great candidate for an introductory sentence. And the reason I say this, right, whenever you're working with an acronym, in your first sentence you would show what the acronym, right, stands for, rapid eye movement, and then in bracket REM, and then throughout the rest of the paragraph you're going to mention it with REM, 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 right? So the acronym for the rest of it. So A, this is a good starting sentence, so I'll see which ones start with E, right? We eliminate two answer choices, okay, A and C. The other thing is, right, remember when I said I would link this sentence, these movements, with another sentence? Which sentence offers or mentions movements? Over here. During sleep, we experience periods of rapid eye movement, right? So these movements, right, it is linked to this sentence. So these two are linked together, E and B. So I know E has to come right before B, right? Because when we refer to something, we don't want the sentence in between in order to help our flow. So rapid eye movement, these movements, so EB, right? Just based on that, I eliminate A, and I have C, choice C, okay? But let me check. E, then B, okay? So far, so good. Remember, I also linked C and D. D came before C because some think blah blah blah, and then others believe, right? So let's see if D comes before C here. D and then C. Good. I put A in between, right? Let's see if that works. So some think, others believe. In REM sleep, the body is quiet, but the mind is active, right? It's telling us what happens in REM sleep, right? So it's telling us rapid eye movement. These movements can be observed, right? E then B. In REM sleep, what the body actually does, and then people's thoughts about it. Some think, others believe. Again, I'm looking or keying in on some reference words, right? Again, when we're establishing logic in a paragraph, there's a certain order that our idea should go in. And these reference words show us what that order, logical order, should be. Okay? Let's do a couple more questions. Let us see. Here we go. So, this is one of the easiest that I will encounter, okay? Because at the beginning of each sentence, there are references that tell you that this paragraph can only begin with one thing, okay? So let's go ahead and get into it. So over here in the first sentence, further, there aren't as such any places for recreation. Further, right, is a transition word, a discourse marker that is adding information. That means it cannot start the sentence, okay? Without offering one idea, you can't say further. Over here in B, we have this means you'll have to endure physical hardship, right? Again, I'm not looking at these ideas like physical hardship should come before recreation, recreation should come before physical hardship. I'm just looking at the reference words that give me a clue to where the idea should be. So again, B cannot begin the sentence. Primarily, okay, it is often not easy. This could come in the beginning, right? This could come in the beginning until we look at D. Primarily, it is often not easy to find a job that suits you. D says living in the countryside has a number of disadvantages, right? A number of disadvantages, right? So it's gonna, in some way, list or order the disadvantages. So I would think that primarily would go after this, right? A number of disadvantages and then primarily. So this is a great candidate right now for an introductory topic sentence. You also have to walk to get somewhere even long distances, right? Also, that means that something else has to be mentioned before this. So this is another sentence that couldn't come in the beginning. So the only sentence really, the best candidate for beginning the sentence, right? C could be, but D is the best one. A, B, and E can absolutely not start it. So A, B, and E cannot start it. So we look at A, we eliminate these answers, right? So there are a couple that have D in the beginning, okay? Right? But when we are listing reasons, you also have this means further, right? Primarily is the reason that would come first, right? right? That's our strongest reason, what we think is the biggest disadvantage. So I would look for something that has D then C. Okay, so this answer choice looks very good. If you're running short on time, or if you don't have time, if you want to save time, you can stop here, right? But I like to go on and read the other sentences just to check that everything makes sense. So after that, I have A, right? Primarily, it is not often to find a job that suits you. Further, there aren't as such many places for recreation. Fair enough, right? Then I have A, right? Further after offering us primary reason. That's fine. And then I have E. You also have to walk to get somewhere, even long distances. And then B. This is the other pair, right, over here that convinces me this is the answer. See? E and B, right? This answer also has E and B, but again, we start with D. We cannot start with further. What I mean by this, right, you also have to walk to get somewhere. Remember this referent, right? This means you have to endure physical hardship. Which of these, right, causes you to endure physical hardship? Over here, it says that walking long distances is what will cause you to endure physical hardships. So I would agree that B and E are linked. E, then B. You also have to walk to get somewhere, right? Primarily this, further this. You also have to do this, right? Doing this, walking great distances, means you'll have to endure physical hardship, okay? So on all counts, C makes sense. I'm very convinced, right? Very sure, very certain, high level of certainty that C is the answer. That's why I like to go through the rest of the sentences to see if I catch something that doesn't make sense, or if I see another pair of sentences that convinces me further. All right, let's do one more question so that this concept is absolutely clear to you. Okay, one more over here. So this one was a little tricky when I did it at first, and again, I'm going to walk you through my thinking. We're going to see where the biggest hints are. So the country with the highest life expectancy is Japan. Okay, this could be an introductory sentence. No real references that tell me whether this should go before or after something, so I'll leave it the way it is. Hence, nuns and philosophers often live to great ages. Over here, sorry, let me get my drawing tool out, red ink. Hence is the word, the reference word. It's not really a reference word, it's a transition word, right? That indicates cause and effect. So this is the effect of something else. Therefore, we cannot just begin the paragraph with hence. We have to have something else that causes it before. So I know that this cannot be the beginning. So do we have any that have B? No. As the beginning? No. Historically, women died in childbirth and men in wars. Okay? Okay. This is a sentence that I'll keep an eye on. Now, childbearing is less risky and there are fewer wars, right? So this is another word that I'll look at now, right? It's indicating time, but you can't really begin a paragraph with now. You'd have to indicate something that happened before, right? Students used to learn using blackboards. Now we use whiteboards, right? So I'm using this to indicate that there's some kind of shift in time, right? The difference between then and now. So this cannot begin the sentence either. So D cannot begin the sentence. Okay, there, the average age for men is 76 and for women is 72. This is the biggest clue that you can take, right? So far, our clues have been, not that helpful in terms of linking one sentence to the other, right? At first, what I thought was I could link C and D together, right? Because I can say historically, blah, blah, blah. But then now we do this, right? So C and D together, which one has it? It would be this one. But when you look, and that's why I advocate for looking through the rest of the sentences, right, that have been put in order, you'll see that A is put next. The country with the highest life expectancy is Japan. And then you have B, hence nuns and philosophers often live to great ages. And then it says there, the average age. Where? Where is there? Right? If we're putting a sentence between Japan, right, and then there, again, that's the only place that has been mentioned, right, as a country. And then I have there over here. These two should be linked. Okay, there shouldn't be any sentence that comes in between them over here, B. So I'm gonna relook at my answer choices, right? This was a link that I thought I had. This is a stronger link over here, right? It doesn't matter if I say historically, something in between, and then now. So let's see if there are other answers that start with C. Okay, C is a great candidate for introduction, but more importantly, that have A then E. Okay, so we have A then E here, right? The country with the highest life expectancy is Japan. There, the average age, blah blah blah. Okay, so okay, this could be potentially, and then historically, now, and then hence. Okay, so hence is the other one that I'll look at now um, to narrow down my answer choices, or which one to eliminate answers. This might be a little more challenging than the other ones we've done, right? Hence, nuns and philosophers often live to great ages. What could be a reason that nuns and philosophers would live to great ages? Okay, I would look at this sentence, B and C. So, historically, women died in childbirth and men in wars, right? So, if women died in childbirth, nuns would live to great ages because nuns usually are celibate, right? They withdraw or abstain from activity with the other sex, right? And then philosophers are usually not fighting in wars, right? Of the men, philosophers live to great ages because they don't fight in wars. Of the women, nuns because they don't give childbirth. So C and then B would make the most sense in terms of this one. Hence, what could be another reason? Let's look at where B follows the other in the other answer choices. So B after D. Now childbearing is less risky and there are fewer wars. Hence, nuns and philosophers. There's not a direct link. Okay. Where else does B come? B after D. B after A. So the country with the highest life expectancy is Japan, and then hence nuns and philosophers. Again, right? But I'm looking for A then E, right? Does this have A then E? Nope. Right? Does this have A then E? Nope. These are the only two answer choices where I have A then E. Okay? And then in these ones, what I'm looking for is what B is linked to. So this says B, C, then B, right? Historically, women, blah, 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 men and war. Hence, nuns and philosophers. Nuns because of the childbirth, philosophers because of the war, right? This is looking like a very promising answer choice. C, then B, right? And then we have our A then E link that I did, right? So Japan and then there. And then in the middle, this sentence comes. Now childbearing, right? But at least it comes after historically. So let's read the sentences, right? This is looking like a promising answer choice. Let's read through it. So historically, women died in childbirth and men in wars, right? Our promising introductory sentence, right? And then hence, because of these activities that women and men did, the women who didn't give childbirth, nuns, and philosophers, the men who didn't fight, often lived to great ages, right? This makes sense. D. Now childbearing is less risky and there are fewer wars, right? So this is tying in, right? They often lived to great ages because they didn't fight in wars and they didn't have to give birth. But now, right, we don't have to worry about childbearing. We don't have to worry about wars. Okay? And then after, right, we bring it to the present day and age, the country with the highest life expectancy, right, we're expanding on what the situation is now, okay, is Japan, and then there the average age for men is 76 and for women is 72, right? Japan and then there have to follow each other because there is indicating Japan, okay, and then so we have A and E that are linked, right? And then we talked about C and B being linked because of that hence, that cause and effect word. Alright, I hope you found this useful. If you have any further questions, you could always ask me in class or shoot me a message through Telegram. But I'll have another Think Aloud out for you with other skills. All right, bye.